Eating gluten-free in Japan is hard. You're not going to be able to just walk into any restaurant and ask to see a gluten-free menu. They don't really exist here. Japanese people often don't know what gluten is and probably don't even speak English. So you're going to have a pretty hard time explaining your gluten allergy or tolerance to them. So if you're planning a trip to Japan and have to eat gluten-free, you absolutely need to plan exactly what and where you're going to eat. Doing this can take a lot of time, and even then you might still end up eating something with gluten in it on accident just because of the language barrier or some miscommunication. Fear not though, I've been gluten-free, thriving in Japan for over 5 years now, and I'm going to save you all the headache and time researching by sharing with you what I've learned living gluten-free here. And hopefully I can help you have the most amazing trip in Japan. So I got a comment from Dark Empress 2000 asking about gluten-free desserts in Japan. So this video is going to be all about what desserts you can enjoy gluten-free in Japan. Thanks for your question, and if you have any questions about gluten-free in Japan or traveling here, pretty much just anything, please leave me a comment down below. So in this video, we're going to go over what Japanese sweets are gluten-free, Western sweets in Japan that are gluten-free, sweets or desserts that look gluten-free but aren't and you should avoid or be very careful about. And then finally, I'm going to give you some recommendations of places you can actually go to. I'm going to put chapters down below, so feel free to skip around to whatever section interests you. And just in case you clicked on this video and not knowing what gluten-free is, it's a diet where you don't eat anything with wheat, barley, or rye in it. These all have the gluten protein in it. For people like me with celiac disease, we have to eat this way, but a lot of people will find general health benefits switching to a gluten-free diet. Okay, now on to the video. The Japanese dessert game is actually pretty strong. In Japan, you have a category of desserts called wagashi, which literally translates to traditional Japanese desserts. Many of the wagashi are based on rice flour, mochi, and red bean paste, so they don't have any gluten ingredients in them to begin with. And in my opinion, this is the best kind of dessert you can eat in Japan because you're eating the authentic recipe that often dates back hundreds of years. Some wagashi include daifuku, my favorite, which is mochi with red bean paste in it. Sometimes there's fruit in them as well. Dango, these are little mochi balls on a stick. The dango themselves are gluten-free, but if you see a sauce on it, that sauce is not gluten-free, so don't eat that one. Amagashi, rice flour with red bean paste inside. And others like anmitsu and oshiruko are also gluten-free. There's a ton more. I'll put the link in the description if you want to go through all of them. I really like wagashi. Not only are they gluten-free, but the chewy texture is a pleasure to eat. They're not overly sweet, and they pair perfectly with Japanese green tea. Now, whether or not wagashi will suit a Western palate is a different question altogether. I remember the first time I brought back some mochi to my coworkers in America, they were all super weirded out by it. The great thing about wagashi is you can find them basically anywhere in Japan. Supermarket, konbini, they sell them at a train station sometimes, and you'll find a lot of shops all throughout Japan serving these. The ones I mentioned are all generally gluten-free, but if they have a sauce on them or inside them, they are not gluten-free. That sauce has soy sauce in it, which has wheat in it, so it's not gluten-free. So just to be safe, you should always confirm the allergens, and that goes for everything I mentioned in this video. For Japanese desserts, other than wagashi, you can just straight up eat fruit here. The quality of fruit is amazing in Japan. I've been to so many high-end restaurants where for dessert, they literally just give you a slice of like a melon or watermelon, which I thought was kind of weird until I tried it, and it is completely different than fruit I've had anywhere else. A melon here can cost hundreds of dollars. There's a hilarious video of this British guy trying a 50,000 yen strawberry. I'll link that down in the description. So yeah, when you visit Japan, I highly recommend trying some of the fancy fruit here at least just once. It will literally blow your mind. Another good option is shaved ice. You can find this at festivals in Japan as well as just straight up shaved iced restaurants. So other than wagashi, of course, you have all your Western desserts here as well, which are less likely to be gluten-free because Western dessert is pretty much always based on wheat flour and not gluten-free. So one strategy you can use is to find desserts that are already naturally gluten-free. Some things that come to mind are macaroons. These are made from almond flour. They're pretty popular here. The cheaper ones do have wheat in them. You have to go to like the nice place to get the authentic macarons. Chocolate terrines. Chocolate terrines, I had never really heard of this before I came to Japan, but it's like a dense chocolate cake with no flour in it. I've seen it at quite a few cafes. Ice cream gelato in the cup. This is the real goat here because you can find this basically anywhere. Fancy restaurants usually have some kind of nice sherbet for you to eat. Custard. I never really ate custard that much before I moved here, but now I eat it because it's pretty convenient. You can find it pretty much any grocery store or convenience store. Rice flour cakes. So Japan has some of the highest quality rice in the world, so it only makes sense that they would make cakes out of it. This is your best bet to get that Western style cake in Japan. If you search online, you'll find various rice flour bakeries, but you need to be careful because a lot of times when they say rice flour, it's really a blend of like 80% rice flour, 20% wheat. So you really need to make sure it's 100% rice flour. Personally, gotten burned by this a few times, so you really need to always confirm the allergens before you buy something. Cafes. A lot of cafes here I've found just randomly have gluten-free desserts, cookies, cakes, which I'm always pleasantly surprised by. The cafes can be pretty sketchy on the cross-contamination, so if your intolerance or allergy is pretty severe, I would be careful here. So next I want to go over some desserts that look gluten-free but actually aren't. First of these being crepes. You're going to see hella crepes in Japan, especially if you go to like Harajuku, Shibuya, Akihabara. You might think that, oh, crepes are traditionally made with buckwheat flour, which is gluten-free. I can assure you 95% of these crepes are made from wheat flour. It is very rare to find a buckwheat flour crepe place. And then even then, they might use the same crepe griddle to make the buckwheat flour and wheat flour crepes, so you have cross-contamination there. So if you want to eat crepes in Japan, you really need to confirm it's 100% buckwheat flour and they have a dedicated griddle for it. Parfaits. You're going to see hella parfait shops in Japan. Personally, I would not pull up to one of these with the boys, but it's a great option for a date or the girls. For gluten-free parfaits, it's really hit or miss. A lot of times they put cake bits in the parfait, so it's not gluten-free. You can try to ask them to take the cake out, but Japan doesn't really have this culture of customizing the menu, so you might run into some resistance here. So it's best to look on the menu for a parfait that just doesn't have any cake in it to begin with. Usually there'll be like 1 or 2 parfaits on the menu that's just ice cream and seasonal fruit. And unfortunately, it's going to be the most expensive one, but hey, it's gluten-free. Ice cream. Ice cream is a pretty safe bet for gluten-free, but in the convenience store, some of the ice cream has wheat bits in it. Or if you go to like Baskin Robbins and try to get one like the funky flavors, it might have wheat in it. So yeah, just be careful with the ice cream. Starbucks Frappuccino. Japan always has some seasonal Frappuccino going on. The best one is definitely the strawberry. But just be careful because sometimes these Frappuccinos have like some cake bits or cookie bits in it. So just use your best judgment here or ask the staff if you have any concern. And lastly, I want to give you guys some recommendations for gluten-free places you can actually go to. So first off, I gotta say convenience stores like 7-Eleven, Family Mart, they all have gluten-free desserts that are really good. You just have to read the allergen menu and make sure there's no wheat in it. And of course, that's all going to be in Japanese, but you can just use Google Translate to check. Or you can just look for the wheat kanji and make sure that's not included in the allergens. I'm thinking too to actually make a video of like everything gluten-free in the convenience stores, because there is a lot of stuff. Second, I'm going to throw out some rice flour bakeries I like. Jiyugaoka Bakery. I used to live in Jiyugaoka, so I went here a lot. This is a rice flour bakery that has gluten-free stuff, but it's not all gluten-free. Half of the store, all the baked goods, is not gluten-free. It's a blend of rice flour and wheat, so do not eat that. There's one gluten-free bread you can get though, but what you want to look for is the refrigerator section. Everything in there, whenever I've gone there, has been gluten-free and absolutely amazing. Highly recommend it. But yeah, I recommend to just double check with the staff when you buy stuff. They'll understand gluten-free there. Second is Okada Vegan Sweets Lab. This is a vegan place, but actually I found that all the cakes there are gluten-free as well. Again, double check with the staff. They'll know gluten-free there. Beicon, I'm not sure if I'm saying right. This is another rice flour bakery that has a lot of gluten-free stuff. Pedra Branca. Again, not sure I'm saying that right. This is a pancake place that also has 100% rice flour pancakes that are gluten-free. Maybe pancakes are a breakfast food for you, but in Japan, I think pancakes are a dessert. Bubble tea, it's delicious, it's everywhere in Japan. My favorite is Gong Cha, that is the best bubble tea, fight me. Gluten-free teas Tokyo. This is a 100% gluten-free place in Roppongi and probably your best place to try gluten-free Japanese food. Everything there is gluten-free, including the desserts. DALLOYAU, this is a chain shop that has gluten-free macarons. McDonald's had to put this in the list. In Japan, McDonald's, you can get a McFloat, which is soda with ice cream on it. You gotta try the melon one. Isetan, this is a luxury department store chain you can find in like Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto. These department stores pretty much always have a floor that's just all desserts where you can find wagashi like daifuku and stuff that's going to be gluten-free. Also a lot of like chocolates and custards, parfaits too. These places are really good with marking the allergens on everything, so if you look, you can translate it with Google Translate, or if you learn the kanji for wheat, you can just read it. Miller Cake Store in Nakameguro, this is probably the sketchiest place I've ever been in my life. It is a gluten-free cake store just in a normal apartment. I'm not kidding, you literally have to like buzz the room and they'll let you in and you walk up. Really nice dude running the place, and it's all gluten-free. Finally, you gotta try the Doraemon bananas. Next to Tokyo Station, there is a mall called Daimaru that has a Tokyo banana shop in it that sells Doraemon bananas, and they're gluten-free. Only the Doraemon ones are gluten-free, do not try any other ones. So this is a list of some of my favorite dessert places. There's so many more I could put, but this video is gonna be way too long. I'm working on a website that's gonna be kind of your complete gluten-free guide to Japan, so look out for that. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about anything gluten-free in Japan, leave me a comment. Bye bye.